Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Similarly Different. Today, as a guest, I have a dear friend of mine who is a creative as well in so many different ways, from video to photos, has a creative agency. Honestly, she can write, she can direct, she can edit, or she can sit on a chair and tell people what to do. My dear friend, Angel Alzona. Ta-da!
Yay! Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. So she has been grilling me for the past 2 weeks asking what our topic is going to be about. And to be honest, I think that it encompasses a lot what I want to talk about, but it all goes back to the title of the podcast, which is Similarly Different. Not only are we similarly different in our backgrounds, our upbringings, what we do, and also how we think on certain things, but our friendship has evolved in so many ways and had different moments because we had to truly step back and get to know our differences and see our similarities within our differences as friendship. So for those that don't know, introduce yourself, tell them a little bit about who you are, what you do, where you're from.
Well, you already did that, right? I mean, you kind of introduced me.
Well, I guess how did we meet? You can tell the world how we met.
Okay.
She loves telling the story.
It's a good story. We met on an Adidas shoot together. She was one of the models and I was doing behind the scenes. And it was not the greatest of meetings at first. I definitely prejudged you for sure. Mm-hmm. And she came in and she went on a trip with some celebrities.
That makes me sound like I'm a freaking escort. No, hold on.
Okay.
I went on a trip for an album release by a group of, it was A&R's radio station people, label people, and it was me and 2 or 3 other creatives that were also included in it because of our relationship to the lead A&R of the project.
Okay, that was well said. And I definitely judged you in a way that I just thought that you were just some sort of stuck up
Pretty girl, yeah.
Pretty girl.
Yeah.
And that didn't change because it was like 2 days of filming, right? We shot for 2 days. So
yeah, it was for WSS. It's actually in the women's section still. This was in 2018.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be a 1-year shoot. They still have me up there because I got a picture sent yesterday about it. But we were there and it's 2 days. And I think for me, when I'm in a set, I try to be super bubbly and vibrant because I want to make sure that I'm speaking to everyone and talking to everyone. But sometimes I can see how that can come off as is she being center of attention or trying to be in every conversation. But I just don't want anybody to feel left out, from the main photographer to the BTS to the person at catering.
No, and I mean, we've talked about this before. I was wrong. I definitely misjudged you that whole time. And you kind of changed my outlook on a lot of things because that was my first like LA type job,
yeah,
quote unquote. And so like I had met a lot of people previous that weren't very nice. And so I kind of put that label on you.
Yeah.
But then like fast forward, we were reconnected through a mutual friend. Mm-hmm. Right. And then I needed talent for what I do. And you started doing that. And then we kind of.
Which was a hosting job.
Yeah. She was talent as a host.
Which I am still the voice and the face of Woodland Hills Honda.
Right. And I think from there, we didn't even really. We were just had like a working relationship at that point. And then I think the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
And then I found myself on the phone with you almost like every day.
Yeah, because of something that people don't know about me and they get to know once they get to know me is I am a phone girl. I will call you, check in how your day was. If I have a drive for 15 minutes, I'm going to see how many calls I can get through in that drive so that I can just check. I don't know where it comes from because some people are not like this, and people that are not like this, I've turned them into this with me, that I just think that a text message is cool, but I can get distracted. If I call, I have your attention and we can also share things a lot quicker. So we started talking in the pandemic because there was not much to do, and it turned into like a habit of every morning, at times at night, and we would just talk for hours and hours and hours. And I think we really got to know each other in a deeper level that way. And it's funny because one of, I want to say, the initial things for me is I grew up having friends from all different age groups, all different societies, all different tax brackets, and even sexualities. And I think for you, you were still trying to figure out who I was. and why I was like so insistent in talking on the phone and like being so like in your life?
Yeah, I think being a masculine presenting lesbian, I think there is sometimes a little bit of a stigma that I might just like every pretty girl or something.
Yeah.
But like going into our friendship, like you were my friend.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't really see that. And sometimes I feel like I can feel the other person, which I feel like was the strain on our friendship, because I felt like you were trying to be not really close to me because maybe you were afraid of what other people thought.
And I think for me, it was like she had no idea that growing up, I had two best friends that were lesbians and gays as well. So with me, and I don't know if anybody can relate to this, certain friendships just bring out different sides of you. And I have some friends that I'm literally attached to their neck when I'm with them. And others where I'm just like, you be at the end of the couch and I'm on the end of the couch and I'm okay with that. And also different times in my life. Like this month or this season, I might not really be touchy-feely, and others, I'm like, hey, huggy. And things take time for me too. Like I'll be very quick to like put you on schedule for calls, but there's layers to the intimacy of the friendship that takes time for me.
But did anybody in your life, because full disclosure, people in my life were like, do you like Yanina? Do you like Yanina? And I was like, no.
Never.
I love her as my friend.
No.
And I was like, but
that never happened to me. It did happen to me in high school. My mom did ask me several times in high school if I was a lesbian because of who my best friends were.
Yeah.
And I remember I would be like, what the heck? And I actually did a really rebellious thing in high school. And people in my school started asking if I was dating my two best friends. And I had nothing, done anything with them. And I remember I took a picture and we put our thumbs in between each other and acted like we were kissing, and I posted it on MySpace. And I put, let's give them something to talk about, because I was bullied in high school at different points so much. I do not recommend this to anyone to do. I do not add fuel to the fire. But I was so frustrated, and I've always been the type of person that you tell me this, I'm going to show you the opposite.
Sure.
So that's the only time I've ever been questioned. But with our friendship, no one's ever asked me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's good.
I think people that were around me always knew that I just have very type friends.
Yeah.
And I don't identify them by their color, tax bracket, or sexuality.
Do you remember how we got close?
I think the pandemic.
Yeah.
I want to say it was the pandemic. And I really love people from Chicago. I have a friend that's a photographer, Vika, that's from Chicago. When I was close to the person that I went on the trip, he's from Chicago. And I just gravitated to people from Chicago. And I think we just kept talking. You're creative. And I liked the way you thought. And from very early on, we kind of pushed the barrier of our thought process, I think. Sometimes it would go really negatively and we would argue about it.
Yeah, I kind of want to get into that.
Yeah.
I feel like we should talk about our almost falling out of a friendship. Do you want to talk about what you needed in a friendship that I wasn't giving you?
I just think you assumed a lot and very confidently of who I am. So I always say, when you meet somebody new, you take them in and you kind of form this idea of them based on your background, right? So like if you meet someone and you've had trauma friendships, you're kind of going in like a little bit scared, or you dive in because you like want assurance from the past trauma. I think with us, you had the assumption from the beginning of who I may have been from being like on Instagram or looking a certain way. I was the model and you were the BTS photographer on the shoot, X, Y, and Z, that whenever certain things would happen, you instantly would be like, oh, she must be like this. Oh, this must be her thought process. So I always tell people, your high may be my, hey, how are you? Where my high and wave, you're like, you're dry as fuck. And I think it's getting to know somebody and understanding how what you say to them translates and vice versa, so that you can learn to speak to somebody in a way where they could actually understand you and you could communicate more effectively.
Well, yeah, I think that's like one part of it. But I also feel that when you like to be on the phone and you like to feel that somebody is also reaching out towards you, and I feel like that was something I was not doing.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was a huge misunderstanding in our friendship, because I didn't know that you wanted that until you iced me out.
Yeah, I think for me, and it comes from realizing, and I don't know if this is healthy or not. I'm a work in progress, y'all. But
she is. She definitely is.
But I think that for me, I overly give a lot of the times. We had another episode where we talked about boundaries and codependency. And I've tried in the last 5 years, 6 years to really hone in and be like, where am I giving energy to that just isn't serving me? And during the pandemic, we had so much free time that I started really narrowing down my friendships, who I was giving time to, who I was giving energy to. But I'll never forget that Vernee Myers, she used to be the head of inclusion of Netflix. She is a TED Talk speaker, always said, relationships do need to be in a healthy transactional way. Because if you are giving, and you're not getting anything back emotionally, like respect or whatever from the other person, you're going to end up in debt. And you're going to end up with too many withdrawals. So I remember that, you know, there's that saying like, oh, if you're in a relationship for what they can give you, you're in the wrong relationship. Yes and no. If you're going into a dynamic of a friendship and you're going with, this is what I want from this person because I want to get into this room or because I want to do this. Okay, yes, that is transactional in a negative way. But if you're going into it and I'm getting to know you as a human and I'm only getting so much back after a certain time, I'm like, okay, should we just navigate this into more of a social friends, an acquaintance,
Your
a
girl's
coworker?
guarded. Your
Yeah.
girl's guarded.
And like, listen, I'm guarded in certain things too. But I think because of the pandemic and also I was doing so much work in myself at that time. And I have this
Can I tell him how you iced me out though?
Yeah, we're going to get to that.
Okay.
So at that point, I was like, listen, I've tried once, I've tried twice. At this point, I remember I was like, I'm not going to call her for 2 weeks and see. Mind you, we were like a morning and afternoon or morning and night touching.
She literally was like my good morning and good night.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. It was a very like platonic relationship, I feel like.
Yeah. And then I didn't call her for, I don't know if it was 2 weeks, maybe a week and a half.
It was 2 weeks. I remember it very clearly. Yeah.
And I remember she texted me and she's like, yo, you good? And I was like, yeah, I'm good. What's up?
Wait, those were my exact words. Yo, you good? And then she said those exact words too. And then I said, I'm just going to call her. And I called you and I was like, hey. And she was like, hey. And I was like, are you good? And I just kind of repeated the text message. She's like, you know, I'm just going to leave people where they're at. And I'm like, okay, what does that mean? What did you mean by, because we never really, we're over this, by the way.
Yeah, this was 2020.
Yeah. But what did you exactly mean by that?
Well, it was that I was taking account of the friendships that I had in my life. And especially with the pandemic, it really made everyone look within and look to what is around you and what you're spending time on. I was also in not the best situation in certain factors in my life, from like career. At the time, it was just very up and down. Relationship, I had no security in that. I was like, friendships, I gotta dwindle out and like weed out the ones that are not gonna be here for the long term, who are not here for realness. And in that, I think I was like, okay, well, it's great to have a phone to pick up and hear and talk and chat. But if I'm never on your mind to check on me, why am I always checking on you? Or why am I pouring my stuff on you? And at that point, I was like, maybe I've placed her in therapy. I remember that everybody is an onion layer in your life from 1 to like 7. I always say this example and she hates it, but
no, I mean, I just know what's coming.
Yeah. So an onion layer, it's like 7 layers, let's say. So you have to know, are you placing your friends in layer number 2 when really they should be in layer number 5 and 6? No love lost, nothing. Just knowing what to share with them, how much time to give them, and where to place them so that you can efficiently see and take note of everyone in your life and what purpose they're there for. And I think in the pandemic, I was doing that a lot because I don't pour from even a Stanley. I pour from a freaking olla of soups. And if you don't know what an olla is, like, it's the humongous, like, witch pots type of things that you make ajiaco or a lot of different huge soups on. So I was like, okay, 1, we got to change it out for a small little clear cup. 2, we got to put a lid on it so you could just have a little, you know. And then 3, who the hell actually cares about you that's in your life? And I don't say that you should ice people out. Maybe that was a little bit immature thing for me to go about it. I should have faced it head on, confronted it, and talked about it, right? But I think that I also went about it that way because when I did lead with confrontation in the past, I would be dismissed or avoided. So I was like, well, let me get a step ahead of it. It still wasn't done right. It wasn't, but that was my reasoning for it.
No, and I do feel that communication was lacking in our friendship, like during that time, because I didn't know that that's what you needed.
Yeah.
But I will say being friends with you and working through our relationship has helped me be a better friend because I came to LA to pursue a dream and that's what I've been doing. I've just had my head down and just been doing that. So like friendships and these relationships that I've been building have just been like additional in a sense, because I've just been so focused in one part of my life.
Yeah.
So when you came into my life, it was like, oh, here's a friend. Oh, cool. She like calls me all the time. She checks on me. Amazing. I didn't know that you wanted that from me.
Right.
But I didn't know because I was not doing that
And I
with
think-
literally anybody else. There was an expectation that you had placed on me that I didn't know was there
For sure.
until I was getting iced out.
Yeah.
And then when we got on that phone call and you were like, I'm just placing people where they're at, I was like, hold on. Hold on. No. I was like, I'm not going to let you give up on this friendship because I'm not giving up on this friendship. And then you started crying.
Yeah.
And then I started crying.
And
then we were just crying.
And I think the similarly different part of that is that when she came to LA, she came for a dream, but she comes from a really, really close-knit family. Now, on my end, I come from not really having a family to lean on. So I put the expectation on her without her knowing that I see my friends as my family, where to her, a friend could just be a friend. And that's okay. And I think in that was the lack of communication and understanding of you actually mean a lot more to me, but if I'm just a pastime, then I'll just go, because I have had friends for 10 plus years, and when I'm friends with someone and I consider them a friend, like that's it, you're stuck with me, and we're gonna work through things. We're gonna not understand each other, but we're gonna make sure that each other is growing individually and also helping each other in however we can. And I think that that's why the hurt came from, because I was like, ugh, another friend that just is here for the LA life and doesn't really care.
But is that really a fair assessment though?
No,
because
that's why I said
I know,
I
because
assumed,
for me,
yeah.
it's like I was always a friend that you could call. Like I picked up all the time. Like I was always there. Like I didn't initiate it. Yes, and I probably should have and could have. I was like, but that's what I'm saying. The miscommunication and the expectation on the friendship is, to me, where we learn the most. Because in order for us to have had now we have a solid relationship, is that we communicate with one another.
Well, and I think it's also understanding like the people in your life, what kind of friend they are. And what I mean by that is you could have a low maintenance friend with high bullet points. So I don't need to have an outing with you. I don't need to even physically see you, but I'll check in on you just to see how your day is mentally. It could be a 3-minute conversation or it can be a 2-hour conversation, and then I'll be done. So for some people, just even getting on the phone means you're a high maintenance friend. Do I think that I could be needy as a friend? Yes. But I also think I give a lot without people asking. And I give it out of the fact of genuinely caring. I don't give it to want it back, but I give it because I really do care about my people. And I think with time, we just grew to learn each other and our languages and different things, how we deal with sadness, how we deal with anger, how we deal with happiness, how we can even sense when we're unsure about something. Like I'll call her and I'll be asking her questions, or she'll be telling me, and she won't tell me what's wrong with her. And I'll be like, there is something wrong with you. And she'll be like, no, I'm fine. And then I'm like, Angel, there is something wrong with you. And she's like, no. And then 10 minutes later, she's like, well, the thing is. And I think that it's just understanding people. At the end of the day, like we're not 12, we're not 15. And there's so many experiences and challenges and phases that we've gone through that it's like you're meeting someone that has all that to carry and embody. But yeah, now we're here.
Yay.
So I do want to go into another part of it.
Let's do it.
So you grew up in Chicago.
Yes.
Okay. And
South suburbs of Chicago.
Okay. How was growing up in Chicago straight initially and realizing that you were actually never straight?
Wow. I grew up Catholic.
Okay.
So I grew up very Catholic. I knew that something was different, but I could not pinpoint it. And growing up in a Catholic school with Catholic parents, very Filipino parents as well, I didn't really have any sort of like outlet to even know what that is. I didn't meet anybody gay until I was in high school, and I was a gay guy. So even being a gay girl was not something that I even thought was a possibility. I'll tell you the story of when I first like felt something weird, and then that's where like my internalized homophobia started. I was riding a bike, and this was around like 5th grade. So I still had not hit puberty. I'm still like flat chested and stuff. And I'm riding a bike with my friend in the neighborhood. and we go pick up these 2 girls. And he's a couple years older than me, so they're like 7th, 8th graders. And the girls like are riding on, the pegs on your bike. So I have a girl on my pegs, and
oh my God, you're like in a love story in your head.
No, I wasn't. That's the thing. I didn't know that I was.
But you were riding where you were like, wow, this feels so good.
No, I literally was like, oh, this is cool. And I'm like riding my bike and we're riding around and stuff. And then we drop the girls off. And then I go home to go check in. And then I go meet up with my friend afterwards. And he's cracking up. He's just cracking up. I'm like, what's so funny? He's like, so-and-so likes you because she thinks you're a dude. Mortified. I was mortified. I literally took my bike, I rode it back home, and I was like embarrassed.
Yeah.
I felt really ashamed. And mind you, she at that time was like working at this like local restaurant. It was like a family-owned restaurant. So like I would see her kind of often. Like I kind of knew who she was. I just my family would go there and I wouldn't go. I would stay home. I'd tell them to bring the food back to me.
Did it make you feel like you couldn't be yourself now because now you were being identified as a guy?
Yes. So at that time, I was still dressing very masculine. And then after that happened, I grew out my hair. I literally had the same haircut. It was a little bit longer, but I had the same haircut up until that time. When that happened, I was like, oh, I'm not doing this. I'm like, I started dressing more feminine. I started to wear makeup, like grew my hair out. Mm-hmm. And then I went through the entire journey of like playing straight. Like I started to kiss boys when my friends started to kiss boys. I progressed in that department as my friends progressed in that department. I am not a gold star lesbian.
What's a gold star lesbian?
A lesbian that's never had sex with a guy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Where you're like, I'm tired of this shit. This is not who I am.
When I moved to LA.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I had so many opportunities growing up, even when I was in college, because I went to college in this.
So you never like hooked up with girls in college?
No, I only made out with girls. I made out with girls like in high school and in college, but I never did anything because I didn't know.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't really pinpoint it.
Yeah, okay.
The one time where I was really thrown off was I went to this club. I used to have a residency filming bands at this one bar. And afterwards, I'd always go hit up the club afterwards because my friends worked there.
The one that you have the gold jacket on?
Yeah.
I'm very detailed, and if she shows me a picture,
That's
it
crazy
stays
that you
registered
remember
in
that.
my brain. Yeah.
So after I was filming one week, I like texted her and I was like, hey, I'm going to come through. Is that cool? And she's like, yeah, fine. And when I got there, she like meet me at the door. She met me at the door, grabbed my hand, and it was like out of a movie. She like threw me up against the alcohol locker and just like made out with me. And I had no clue what was happening. But I just went with it.
But this was like a different makeout than you were doing like.
This was like different.
Okay.
It felt different, but I had no clue. Because again, I grew up not, that internalized homophobia. You just kind of like pat that down.
Wait, so question, parentheses, commercial break.
Yeah.
Did you have any gay friends growing up?
No.
Or any family members?
Zero.
So
I had no representation. There was no insight into that world at all, besides one gay guy in my high school. But then that's why I bring up college, because I should have known a little bit. Once I met a bisexual girl in my first year of college because I could hear her.
Like, oh my gosh.
And like one day it would be a dude and then another day it would be a girl. And then we would talk in our little bathroom and she would apologize to me. I was like, oh, it's okay. But that didn't even like click. Yeah. But then when I was going back to the girl in the alcohol locker, like that should have been something. It should have been a like, hello, you're gay. Like a lot of people say, what would you tell your younger self? Now, I would literally tell my younger self, you are gay, because it would have saved me so many years of being depressed. And I didn't know why I was depressed.
What held you back from saying that earlier? Me, for example, like I knew I wasn't, but I had both around me. My best friends were lesbians and I had gay guy friends from the dance world and all that stuff. So I just knew I wasn't.
Yeah.
So it was like, for me, it was frustrating. My mom would be like, are you a lesbian? Because you haven't brought a guy over and like you have these two girls you always together with.
Right.
But for you, it's interesting that you just never saw that. Not even like on TV or anything where you're like, oh, I looked up to like these girls or...
No, barely. No, I didn't. And then when I started going to art school in the city of Chicago, I was partnered up with a lesbian, one of my first classes. And even talking to her, she would invite me to lunch and I'd go be out with all of her friends and they're all lesbians and they'd all be talking and they would group me in and her name was Sandy. And she was like, oh, not Angel, she's not gay. And even that statement.
Do you think it didn't make you feel comfortable enough to be like, well, I might be, like, already assuming that to you?
I think she probably knew, but she was giving me the space to figure that out myself.
Yeah.
Because I really didn't know until I started to figure it out
Right.
when I came out here.
So the locker moment happens. That's in Chicago.
Yeah, but nothing ever happened. We never spoke about it. She never spoke about it to me further. I never spoke about it with her further. It didn't happen again.
Okay.
And it was just one of those things that was like, what? And then that summer, though, I don't know what went over me. Because that summer, I just started to like, I just started to explore away with like more dudes. Because I knew I was going to LA. And I was just like, all right, one little summer rendezvous before I move west.
Okay. So when you moved to LA, when did the light bulb turn on?
Okay, so I moved to LA in 2009 after I graduated college to pursue work. So I came to LA to pursue this dream. I was just drawn to go out west.
Yeah.
And so for me, if this was everything that I wanted to do, in 3 months, why did I hit the most depressive state I had ever been in? I literally was just not happy. And I would ask myself at night, why are you this is everything that you wanted. You're here.
Right.
Why are you so upset? And then it kind of just started to unravel. It was almost like I needed to leave my psychic container at home in order to realize this. Mm-hmm. It was almost like I couldn't be where the familiarity was to see who I really was.
Yeah, you needed to remove yourself from the noise.
Yes. And then who I moved out here with was a gay guy. And we were driving to IHOP. And I'll never forget, I turned to him and I said, hey, how did you know you were gay? And that was the conversation that started it all. He kind of told me, and I was like, I might be bisexual. I feel like it was
too big of a jump. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, I couldn't go lesbian all the way. I had to say I'm bisexual at first. And that was really the start of my exploration. He put me on dating apps, started messaging girls for me. He was dating the girls for me, I feel like, on the dating apps. And when I met the first girl who was my first girlfriend, after her and I started to become intimate, I was like, oh, this is what I was missing. This is what it should feel like.
Yeah. And how did you come out to your parents?
They were the last people to find out.
Okay.
So you know how I came out bisexual and I'm from Chicago? I was telling people, you know how like there's 2 baseball teams? You got the Cubs. I was like, you got the Chicago Cubs and the Chicago White Sox. I'm like, it's like I'm playing for both teams.
I'm dead. Not a baseball reference.
That's how I came out to a lot of them.
That's funny.
And then I came out to my parents last, but they're the first to know in retrospect. They knew. And that's the thing that was a little bit frustrating to me, even though in hindsight, I understand it now, is if everyone around me knew, you guys couldn't tell me?
I think it was
not
for you
even
to
like
discover.
a heads up. No, I know. That's what they're saying.
Yeah.
It would have just helped me a little bit.
Sometimes people don't need to grab your hand. Sometimes you gotta walk over the sidewalk by yourself.
I get it. I understand.
So now, do you feel like you're living your most authentic self?
Absolutely.
How does
And
that
it's
feel?
crazy because I just got back to me. It's like I always knew. I think that little Angel always knew. And society and the environment that I was in did not allow for that angel to thrive.
Yeah.
And so I put myself into this closet. And then when I was able to escape that environment, I was able to become who I am, who I always was.
I love that. It makes me happy. It makes me happy to hear like my friends being their authentic self, because there's so much that goes into the discovery of yourself. Mm-hmm. I think even for me, like, while I didn't go through a discovery of sexuality, I've gone through a discovery of who am I really and being who I am wholeheartedly without fearing of. At times I've had to minimize how much I care about people. At times I've had to minimize how much I want to communicate with others to be able to understand them better because of the lack of misunderstood that I've seen and I've experienced as well, and so have so many other people around me. And there is no way, shape, and form that I can compare to you, like with your journey, but it's still really refreshing to be able to now sit next to you and be able to hear that you truly feel like your authentic self, because I can only imagine the amount of people that are hiding behind who they really are out of the fear of, will it be accepted? Will it be received well? And will I lose everyone around me the moment I say it?
Those were my thoughts.
And how did you process that?
Therapy, because I didn't know how people were going to react. I expected people to turn their backs on me, and I did have friends that turned their backs on me or made things weird. You know, because I said growing up, I was always around all straight people.
Yeah.
And I feel like some people, like I remember there are a couple girls who I had grown up with, and they said to me, yeah, people have been asking me, how does it feel to know that Angel's gay? And I was like, how does it feel? What does that even mean? Like, that doesn't change our relationship. I think a lot of the times I started to see people be different around me. Like, I'm a girl's girl. Like, I'm still like, I'm very feminine. I love my femininity.
Like to cook. She doesn't like to cook if you're listening and you're a lesbian. I made her cook for my birthday dinner. She doesn't like to cook, guys.
What is this? But I do lean into my femininity a lot. And I think sometimes that gets even confusing in the gay world. Because I think I present a certain way, so they expect me to be a certain way.
But you're a little softy. You're Cancer.
I knew she was going to say that. I literally knew she was going to say that.
So now you're authentic. You're you. And then you go through a breakup.
Oh, God. I don't know if I want to go there. So but we can. Whatever. All right.
So you go through a breakup and you finally let people in, and then it doesn't go as you hoped. Word we can use, I guess. Right? Because
this is tea, because I've never talked about my breakup.
You are like, this hurts. This sucks. Right? Does it scare you because of the fact that you didn't grow up having so much of it around you? Or actually at all, does it scare you in knowing where to go and how to overcome it and go through it again? Like, because I say this in the sense of, for me, right? I got married, got divorced. I always say to myself, I wonder if I'm going to get married again. I want to get married again. But I'm like, was it just my one shot to experience it? So in this essence from you, it took you a long time in your life to be able to get to the point of like, I am lesbian, I am happy with myself, and I'm going to take a risk and a chance and have a full-on relationship, and it doesn't work out. So what is the process of after that breakup that you had to tell yourself to be able to still live authentically rather than go in and hide like you did for so many years? Which was kind of easier to do. Yeah.
I think I'll speak for my own experience. Coming out at 23, I feel like I became an adolescent again. So I think like a lot of the dating and the relationships and like the stuff that most people at 23 should be going through and stuff is like almost like a younger relationship, if that makes sense. It's almost like you're going through adolescence again. So I feel like my last serious relationship was like 27 on, and I feel like the way that relationship was very, not immature, because I don't want to say that, it was just very young.
Yeah,
that relationship was very young, and I didn't really have the tools to really know how to navigate the hard parts of relationships. So after that, being single for so long now, I think I'm not afraid to be alone. Like, I really am not. I needed the time to grow personally, because I think it's easy when a relationship goes wrong to blame the other person. It's so easy to point out those flaws and to sit in your sadness and like anger.
And I think there's also, though, to give a little grace to the grieving process.
No, yeah.
It happens. It happens,
100%.
But like you said, you can't stay there.
Because I was grieving a lot. Yeah. It wasn't like this person, I mean, I thought we were getting married, but
yeah.
Obviously not.
I mean, I thought I was going to grow old. Obviously not.
But I think it's very important to look at your own, how can you grow from it as well?
Yeah.
And so I needed to take, I think for the first part of it, I was like, this is so messed up. I can't believe this. And it was almost a victim mentality. And I'm not saying that, like, I did give myself grace, but I also needed to take accountability so that I could grow from it. And I think now I am very happy with who I am and who I turned out and the growth process of it all. And whatever God, the universe has in store for me, I'm happy with it because I've learned how to navigate life by myself. And not technically by myself, because I have so much love around me. And I think that's one thing too that I want to stress is, like, you mentioned my family earlier. And I think, yes, have I not had romantic love in a few years? Yes. But I've had so much love in my life that I don't want to ignore that either. So
Yeah,
for
you don't
me,
want to
like,
downplay it.
I've had so much love and kind of training of like living on my own that I'm happy with what life holds. Would I love a partner? Yeah, I'm hopeful for someone that just somebody nice. I just want someone nice.
We've had this conversation. She's a
I
golden
don't know
retriever.
why
She needs a black
rolls,
cat. If
I
you
do
are a
not know
black
why
cat,
she rolls her eyes.
she is single and looking. No, but I think that something that's really important to share is that the grieving process has processes, but you have no control of what number you're going to go at to first. There's some people that go into the sadness first, some people that go into the anger first, some people that go into, like you said, the blaming first. But it's about you're going to process at some point all of them, but being able to get to the ending, whether it's sooner than later, of, okay, it happened.
Right.
The world is not over, even though it felt many times through it that the world was ending.
Yeah.
But picking yourself back up, rebuilding yourself,
Right.
and staying true to your authentic self that you were towards the end of it and who you are evolving to. You could have easily, on your end, gone back and been like, my sexuality clearly isn't working. Screw this. Fuck this. I'm going to go turn straight because at least it's easy for me. But instead, you're like, that's not my authentic self. For my end, I went through a divorce. I could have been like, screw this. I hate men. Bitter Nancy over here. Sorry, Nancy, whoever you are. But like, I could be bitter over here. I could be like, it was him. It could have been so many things. Instead, I was like, this sucks. Okay, this hurts. Who am I? Oh, I don't even know who I am. Okay, let me rebuild that. And now who I am today, I'm so proud of her. I can stand strong. I can stand alone. Have I been shifted at times? And it's like kind of like been pushed off the cliff a little bit of like, do you know yourself? Do you know yourself in relationships after that? Yeah. But I think that happens throughout time. And I think in your next relationship, there's going to be things that are going to come up that you're going to have the option to be like, I dealt with this way last time, and this time I'm going to deal with it differently from the lessons that you've learned, from the maturity that you've had,
Right.
and just understanding people from experience now at a different light.
Right. I feel like we're always going to be constantly growing and learning from what we do.
And I think that's even like in all types of relationships, work, friendships, family, but that's amazing. I like that. I like who you are today.
Thank you.
And obviously I didn't know her when she was in her relationship, but I didn't know you, right?
No.
I didn't know you, in your relationship, but I think that seeing somebody truly discover themselves and feel whole is so important, because sometimes that can be really scary, that discovery phase, and learning and realizing that you have to let go of certain parts of yourself and also tap into parts that kind of scare you, but bring you so much peace when you stand in them.
Yeah. And I think it was like, I live with anxiety, you know that. And I tend to catastrophize a lot of things. So even when I was coming out, I just thought everyone was going to abandon me.
Yeah.
And that wasn't the case. And it is getting over that fear and just showing up and being who you are that can literally change your life. It changed mine. And now, because I never saw myself represented, I try to put myself out there a lot more, even just doing this, to tell my story, to hopefully help others that might be going through it. You know, if there's a kid that's like 15, their teenage years, trying to figure out who they are and stuff, maybe my story resonates with them and they can avoid years of hiding themselves.
And also, what about if it's not a kid listening, but what about if it's a family member or a friend? How would you suggest they approach it if they haven't been able to come to terms? Now, in hindsight, do you understand why people never asked you or never pressured you for it? Or would you have wished that somebody was like, hey?
I don't think that somebody should pressure you, but I think when you come out, especially like having a close-knit family that I have, I feel that you also have to give people a little bit of grace.
Yeah, of course.
To come to terms with things too.
On their own,
And to me, with anything, it should be a healthy conversation. And if you have questions, and I have answers. Like, I love talking about it. You know, what I don't like, and this is something that I've worked with my family as well, is I feel like they were like, oh, cool, you're gay, but never would ask me anything about it. So that was kind of hurtful for me, you know?
Yeah, you want people to know your world and want to be taught.
Yeah, and want to even just learn about it themselves.
Okay, so now we've covered our friendship. We have covered your whole journey in self-discovery and being happy within yourself. Is there anything else that you think we have similarly differences in that we've come to terms with.
I've seen you in a couple different relationships. So I want my friends to be loved as well in that realm. And I think that you deserve, like, my expectation for you is like very high in that realm. And I feel like all I've seen you do is date people that are undeserving of you. And I want to know.
Actually, I had a question though, real quick. So last night I was talking to my friend Yusuf on the phone because I had posted on my close friends about how guys categorize girls into 5 categories. Now, in this, I said, you know, a lot of my friends, and I shared this, I said, a lot of my friends think that the guys that I've dated are undeserving of me. And I said, and while I think that that's so sweet and I love them for that, do you think that's toxic? And he said, I think that friends have a tendency sometimes to romanticize the person, and you could have been a dream girl or like a really good girl, but that doesn't mean that you were the person for that guy. And he goes, and it should take a friend to realize, to be like, you guys just didn't match, but you just think some guys were undeserving of me.
I just think that it's for somebody to me, because I look at you as somebody who has this self-love, and I feel like we're similar in a sense that we prioritize a lot of work. But I think that's where our friendship really blossomed, is that you are a workaholic and I'm a workaholic, and we have goals and we are working on achieving them. But I feel like in, I guess, both of our personal lives, it's like we value professional selves here, and sometimes I feel like personal is like a little bit shifted down here. And I want to know, do you feel like you've been able to progress in how you see yourself from a personal standpoint? Because I watched you go through it wasn't fun to see you go through it. And I feel like even when you were going through it, you would fight me on me standing up for you.
Yeah.
And it was very much so like, wait a second, why are you fighting me for this person? I'm just trying to be a supportive friend and to let you know, like, hold a mirror up to you and be like, this is you, you know?
You know, I think that relationship that you're talking about, which wasn't my longest, but it was a good chunk of 3 years. I had came out from such a long relationship prior to that. And I met this person in my discovery phase, but it was still very early on to my discovery that I think I fought with so many people while being in this relationship instead of confronting the problem a lot, out of never feeling safe to confront it. So in another episode that I had, the guest was telling me how for the first time she felt safe by her husband in certain things in their marriage, and her inner child was like, wow, I feel safe. And the reality is that I never felt safe in the relationship. So how could I confront things that I never felt safe? And everybody else around me was seeing things that I could see, but I didn't feel safe to confront it. So you're screaming at me, I can't go and scream at them because I don't feel safe. So what am I just going to do? I'm going to throw the ping pong back. And I'm going to scream back at you because now I feel attacked because I already know this is happening. And sometimes valuing the breadcrumbs as if they were a whole vase is what I would do. And I think a lot of the times, again, it's just that relationship caught me in a self-discovery phase where I wasn't ready to tap into something, because the reality is if I was ready, that relationship I wouldn't have been attracted to.
Right.
Because I would have seen early on that what they were willing to offer me was breadcrumbs of what I really deserved. And I think it took a long time to get out of it because it fell into a trauma bond and a codependency between each other that we had. And there was so many goodness in it, but neither one of us wanted to live up to our goodness. So for me, in my sense, I didn't want to go heal the things that I was still dealing with, but because it wasn't a true relationship, because it was a situationship, I was like, well, should I tell you about this stuff, or is this too heavy for you to understand so that you can make me feel safe and we can process it through together because I haven't dealt with this? And then on the other end, I saw so much potential and greatness in this person, but it was too much of a risk for them to face on because of what they had going on in their active life, that they were like, this is so good. Why do we have to go into that Pandora's box, even though I know that you see that it's there? And I'm the type of person that if I see your Pandora's box, I'm like, bitch, open it. Let's go through it. You can lean on me. I'll lean on you, whether it's a friend or a partner. I'm like, let's go through it. And I think that I was battling that the whole time. And potential and hope are such scary things to lean on when it comes to a relationship, because you never know if a person's going to reach their full potential. And the hope of it is like you're hanging off by a rope and just swinging back and forth, wondering if anybody's going to ever grab you to land. And that was really something that I fought with a lot of friendships in that time. I felt like I constantly had to prove to them that the relationship was valid. And I giggle because, oh my God, the amount of things I went through.
Well, I think that was the number one thing that I would always say to you on the phone. And for the record, I don't know this person personally.
Yeah.
So I'm not speaking on his character or him. I'm not saying he's a bad person.
No,
I'm
he's
saying
a great person. It's
at
just
the end of the
everybody has
day-
battles.
at the end of the day, like, I saw how it affected my friend. And like, that was when I was like, you would tell your friend, stop it.
Yeah, and I
Like-
think, I will give a tiny little bit of grace in the sense of they never saw that part of me.
What part?
The part that my friends saw, my broken down part. They never saw the days I would be crying for hours,
Yeah.
the anxiety filled nights, the fact that I couldn't sleep throughout nights, the fact that I was literally throwing up from anxiety and not feeling like I was a control freak. And I was trying to work on letting go
100%,
of control. And this person was like, I'm not even going to give you 1% control. So it was like heightening every little thing inside of me, add on to the fact of the trauma of my divorce that I hadn't really fully processed. It was just a lot. And it's like he gave me safety without giving me safety. He gave me safety and new discoveries, but would take it away.
So what made you switch your mindset? What made you leave that situationship? And what did you learn about yourself from it?
I learned that even while healing, I still deserved a lot more. And that a lot of people think, well, I'm not fully healed, so what I'm getting is enough. And actually, that's not true. You deserve a whole cup of water, even if you're in the process of healing, if someone's trying to get your attention. Because even at my 30%, it was anybody else's 100 because I was giving so much. And I'll never forget one time I had said, I was like, I'm carrying the ship. I'm carrying the ship, and I've been carrying the ship for a while. And they were like, so don't. And I was like, okay, one, I can look at this in two ways. He's literally telling me, stop controlling it. And if it dies, it dies. But two, why am I pushing onto something that is clearly not making me happy? And I think when I realized that, I was like, you know what? I have to step back. I was just tired. And so many people can say they're tired. There's, how many breakups were in between those 3 years? Who knows? But I just think it comes a time, I don't know if it's my sign, I don't know if it's who I am as a person, I don't know what it is. There comes a time in a relationship where you just can't no more. And at that point, you don't cry, you don't scream.
You're just numb to it.
You're just numb to it.
Yeah.
And I don't suggest anybody to get to that point. I don't think it's healthy. But I think that at that point, you're like, okay. And I think I told myself, I said, give it 6 months, end it. And I actually made a promise to God in my journal. And I said, I'm going to give it 6 months. If I'm meant to be with this person, you're going to show me. And if I'm not, you're going to show me.
Mm-hmm.
And in those 6 months, I made the most money I've ever made in my life. In those 6 months, I got opportunities I had never been given. In those 6 months, the first 3.5, 4 months were still anxious filled. But when that 4th month hit, I felt so much peace. And then I remember when I reconnected with them, we had a conversation and they were like, but you know me. And I realized in that moment that the person I had been thinking about was a person 2.5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And the person that was standing in front of me, I did not know, because we're forever evolving. And at a certain point, they closed off the inviting part of themselves. And even then, I don't know how open it was to begin with. And I was like, I don't know this person. And the person I had worked on myself to be while in that on the way out and the 6 months out was entirely different person. And even if my heart at times thought of the person in 2019, that's not who's here. And I realized, and I kept having to tell myself, whatever they do, take it as a pinky nail. Whatever they do, take it as a pinky nail, because my ass will create it into a castle. But I think that's what I had to do. And like now where I am today, I don't know if I'm attracted to the same things, but I am very more aware more than anything of what not to be attracted to.
Do you feel like you're upfront in what you want?
I think I'm pretty upfront to a certain extent. I think at times I am very hyper independent, so I don't want to come off too, I still want to be feminine.
Of course.
But I have told myself, you have to voice the things from the get. And if they feel uncomfortable by it, that is not for you to carry.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Angel. Well, we shared a lot. We even
did.
have some other parts that are on a secret episode if you guys want to follow us on Patreon. But this is all you're going to hear from us today. Thank you so much for
Yay.
being here.
Well, thank you so much for having me and allowing a space to tell my story. So I really appreciate that.
I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys resonated with it, related to it. And if you have anybody in your life that is from the LGBTQ plus community, just know that a warm hug, an open conversation, and ears rather than judgment will go a really long way and help people feel seen, heard, and loved. So until next time.